Sharmila, coming to you. Thank you so much for bringing this such progressive. Well, congratulations to you for doing this, bringing this law, and also the one on domestic abuse, which is much being talked about now. The husbands have no right, the men have no right. That should be a conversation for another time. But your law on child marriages makes the car registration for production of C and IC mandatory. I think that is a good step for stopping child marriages. Secondly, which is like, I would, if it actually get implemented, is sexual relations with minors will be considered statutory rape.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a good step because consent, here comes the issue of consent, and that is possibly the only way to deal with it. So my first question to you is, when drafting the law, raising the minimum age of marriage to 18, what considerations led to focusing on age limits and penalties rather than explicitly invalidating child marriages? Why did you not include that?
Thank you, Nida. And thank you for having this panel and inviting me here on this very, very important subject. And I will not only just call this a subject, I think this is a lived reality in Pakistan. It's a very pertinent question that why drafting this law, we did not explicitly declare child marriage is void. Now, when I was drafting this law back in Sindh, almost 12 years ago, we could not come to a consensus, particularly on this fact that declaring child marriage void would actually give protection to the victim, to the child. We discussed, we deliberated, we had cross-cultural deliberations, and we had people from the judicial fraternity, we had people from the communities, and we had people from across the political parties. And the reason that we did not do this then, and the reason that I did not do this now after 12 years in ICT, was because we had to work within the judicial and the legislative, the religious framework of Pakistan. We are governed by, personal law. And most of the times, discussing personal law is completely sensitive. The moment we discuss this, we have issues, we have objections. So the purpose to bring this law was not only normative clarity, it was also particularly, I wanted it to survive, legally, and I wanted that there should be some form of enforceability to it. So what we did was, we did the bare minimum. We decided to go for, criminalizing and increasing the age from 16 to 18. That was the first thing we did. And then we went ahead and criminalized all those people who facilitate, who support child marriages. We put in the criminal liability and the penalty for the facilitators, for the guardians, and for the perpetrators. This is how we started. And I was hoping, and I'm still hoping, that once this law, the rules are framed and the law is on ground, we are hoping for judicial interpretation. Now, what I mean by judicial interpretation is that once the courts start giving judgments that 18 is the legal benchmark, and we have judgments like we have the Federal Sharia Court judgment here, then this will become a norm. What we don't challenge becomes tradition. And the places and the reasons and the issues on which we remain silent becomes culture in Pakistan, unfortunately. And as rightly pointed out by Justice Jawad Saab and you, we have judgments coming from courts where they actually are trying to institutionalize child marriage. The law is very much there, in the Sin Child Restraint Marriage Act, we had certain loopholes because that was the first law, the first province to legislate that. And once that law became operative in 2014, I saw certain lacunas, and those were which I tried to cover in the ICT law, primarily what you spoke about, you know, the NIC, we made it mandatory in ICT that the Nikah registrar has to see the computerized NIC and ensure that the girl is 18 before solemnizing the Nikah. And if he doesn't, we put a criminal liability penalty on him. So we need to institutionalize this thing. Secondly, the biggest issue that we were facing in Sindh was that the girl child was picked up from Karachi, taken to Lahore and married because Punjab doesn't have a law. Or she was taken to Islamabad or Peshawar because they didn't have a law. So what we wanted to do was, we wanted to ensure that the law was something that the state could enforce. Now again, enforceability is a big question mark with almost every law in Pakistan, but that did not deter us from actually enacting it. So your question regarding that why we did not make it completely voidable was because we wanted it to survive. Because if we had gone completely explicitly about making child marriages void, it would have completely eroded the fact that we would have not been able to legislate. It would have derailed the process or completely stalled it. And we would have been back to square one because in the last 10 years, a lot of people tried doing this, but they could not get through, unfortunately.
I completely agree with you. Inside the video where legislators are saying that they will ensure the banning of 10-year-olds and 16-year-olds. And that we have the judiciary, which is rightfully said, institutionalizing it.
So, I was horrified. I was in the parliament when this was going on, and unfortunately we could not stand at the Bly because it was a joint session and we were passing, and the domestic violence bill was passed that day. And let me tell you one thing, and I completely believe in this, that again implementation is a completely political choice and an institutional choice. If sitting parliamentarians stand on the floor of the House and flout and challenge the very law that protects their children, especially the girls, and the state is silent on this, then the law becomes symbolic. So if you want to translate any law into protection, the institution, which is the parliament, has to ensure that the right of childhood is given to the child. It should ensure dignity, it should ensure equality, as rightly pointed out by Justice Saab in Article 25. And it is only then that such legislative efforts will turn from text to protection.
Passing the law is an important step, but making it work in practice is often a bigger challenge. How do you see the role of the legislature in ensuring that this law is actually implemented and not just passed? You partially addressed this, but maybe you can add more power to that.
Well, Nida, I think passing the law means the first milestone, but it's not the finish line. And as a legislator, I feel by no reason end of the enactment. It begins from there. And to ensure that the law is implemented, I think the first thing that we need to do is parliamentary oversight. We have standing committees, and it was mentioned earlier. And I think those parliamentary committees and standing committees are very powerful. We should have a parliamentary oversight where we see whether the FIRs are being registered, what is the prosecution rates, and what is the judicial outcome. If there are no cases being registered and not being pursued, that means that there is state failure. And when the state fails, the parliament must demand accountability. Secondly, the most important thing is institutional alignment. As I think both my honorable panelists mentioned earlier, I think no child marriage law can work in isolation. So first of all, there should be birth certificates marriage registration certificates. Secondly, there should be child protection authorities. I know we have it in Sindh, we have it in Punjab, but we need to have absolutely functional, aggressive child protection authorities. Again, education and health department should be on board, and a very robust local governance structure which aligns with the law, because it can't work in isolation. Thirdly, and most importantly, I think it's about centering the girl child. Laws that criminalize child marriage and which punish the perpetrators but do not support the child, I don't think they are providing justice. So what we need is the support system for the child. If there's a girl child who's being married off, how do we bring her back and she crawls back to mere education? She needs shelter, she needs legal aid, she needs economic support. So the state needs to provide that support mechanism. Last but not the least, I'll come back to the same point in your video again, that implementation is a political and an institutional choice. If the institution remains silent, the law will become supported. There will be no implementation. And if the judiciary does not come forward to support the legislative efforts of parliamentarians, then the Siddharth here is where progressive judges like you are important in this country. We need judges, we need people at the helm of affairs who help enforce these judgments and enforce the implementation of these such laws.
Thank you, Sharmila. Thank you so much.